Latto speaking. We are live on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter. All of this gets recorded, puts into our podcast. So if you listen to this on the podcast, thank you so much for listening. We get hundreds of thousands of downloads on our podcasts, and I'm very proud to have done over 400 podcasts. So if you're a podcast listener, thank you so much for listening in and joining to this northern guy who sounds like this. Thank you so much. It's much appreciated. In today's session, I want to talk to you about how to get your first buy-to-let property. This is something I've been doing for 20 years. It took me from the age of 20 to the age of 26 to actually get around to getting my very first buy-to-let. And I had so many people who said, don't do it. It'll ruin you. It'll be the biggest mistake you've ever made. And actually, the biggest mistake I've made a lot, but one of the big mistakes I've made is waiting from the age of 20 to the age of 26. Going back 25 years ago, it was so much easier back then. And if I knew what I knew now, I would have bought more and I would have kept on buying as many as I could. Obviously, 2007, 2008 took a lot of people out of the property market, but here we are, still going strong, still buying more properties. And I want more people doing what we've done because we get to live from our income that's generated through property. Passive income, passive. No such thing as passive income, but we get money from our rentals. That pays for our lifestyle, our villa here in Spain. It pays for our cars, our holidays. It pays for everything. And anything we get on top is a bonus. And it's taken us 20 years to get to that point, but you don't have to take that long to get there. But you've got to start with your first one. And for most people, that's where the problem begins. How on earth do I get my very first property? So there's a couple of things that I'm going to go through in today's session. We're going to go for about 30 minutes, 40 minutes. If you've got any questions, stick them in the box down below. More than happy to go through and answer those for you. But let's talk to you about how you get your first property. And so we're going to break this into two sections. The first bit is we're going to run numbers on properties that you could buy right now that are available on the Invest Leads website, for example. And then the second part is how are you going to find the money to be able to buy those properties in the first place. So the first bit is what are the numbers? The second bit is how do we get those numbers and make enough money so we've got enough for the deposit and for solicitors and all of that kind of thing. So I need to check that you can see what I'm actually writing on the board as well. And if you see my eyes going down, it's because my computer's just down here. If you've got any questions, stick them in the box down below. So we've got a property on the market right now, which is £69,000. And that is a one-bed property. It's in Dewsbury, Springwell Mill, I think it is, if memory serves. But that's £69,000. A deposit of 20%. Now, you need to check whether you can get deposits of 20%. Works out at 13,800. You'd be pleased to know I've actually ran these numbers before we went live. You've got stamp duty. Let me just redo these slightly better so we're actually in order. So you've got the price, 69,000. You've got the deposit, which is 13,800. You've got solicitors' fees, £1,000. Let's put legal fees on there so we know exactly what they are. Legal fees. Then you've got stamp duty, which we worked out before, by the way, and I worked it out as being £2,070. If you put stamp duty calculator into Google, it will come up. And if it's your first property, if you're a first time buyer, or if it's an additional property, which it would be if I was buying it, it will calculate what the stamp duty is. And of course, there is no stamp duty under 40,000. Finding a house under 40,000 would be questionable best of time. And the type of tenants you're going to get in that type of house would be questionable too. But you can do it. But to calculate the stamp duty, there's a website that will allow you to do that. So right there, the total cost is 16,000. Whoops, 16,000. Maybe we do that so it's clear. What is it? 16,879. How did I get that? Oh, 870. Yeah, 870. So that's how much money it's going to cost you to get into this deal. Okay, so let's work out what's the return going to be on a deal like that. So it rents at 460. Put a line down there. So it rents 460. Let me just check that you can see that on the screen. Yes, you can. Rents at 460. Your mortgage, that says mortgage, believe it or not. Your mortgage is £184 at 4%. So it depends on what the interest rate is. Because if the interest rate might be 10%, it's not 184 quid. If the interest rate is 2%, it's going to be less than that. So you need to be aware. And I'm uncomfortable at 4%. I think 6% should be more readily, should be the calculation on this. But let's go with 4% because you can get mortgages at 4% right now. And then you've got a service charge. I don't know what the service charge is on that one, but let's call it £75 for now. Which gives you, so the rent, which is 460, take away the mortgage, take away the service charge, gives you £201 times 12 is, well, let's call it £200 because it's easier. Times 12 is 2,400 per year. Divide that by £17,000, which is this number here. We're now calculating the return on investment, and that will give you a 14% return on investment. So what is that? Is that 7 years to get all your money back? Is that right? Let's do it. Let's have a look. If you've got any questions, stick them in the box down below. So in this section, we're going to talk about these numbers, and then in the second section, we're going to talk about how you get deposits and how you can build these up to get your first buy-to-let property. So 100 divided by 14 is 7.14. It's about 7 years to recover your original investment. And then anything after that, and by the way, this kind of puts some people off because we go 7 years to get that money back. Oh, that's ridiculous. I'm not doing that. Where else can you get a 14% return on your money? There's not that many places, okay? Now that's assuming all these numbers are correct, and they might change. The interest rate might change. You might have a finder's fee on here, which there is, unless you can source it directly yourself. And if you want to learn how to do that, you buy the property sourcing training to show you how to do that. But a 14% return, where else can you get that kind of money? But it does stop some people because they go, well, I'm not waiting 7 years, Dan, to get 17 grand back. That's crazy. Why would I do that? Because after 7 years, I'm on my 21st year of being an investor. And yet I've made that back twice as much. And also bear in mind that that property now that I bought 21 years ago, my first property that I ever bought was £42,500. It's now worth 170 grand. So you have to take this into account as well. But we don't know how much a property is going to be worth in 20 years' time. Until we get to 20 years, it might be worth less, it might be worth more, but the chances are it's going to be worth more. But a 14% return on investment, I quite like that. What do you think? Let me know what you think in the box below. But that's how you get your first investment. That's what the numbers look like. Now, of course, if you're watching this in London and you're going, £70,000 for, I can't buy a property for that. Yeah, of course you can. You're buying up in Leeds. In London, that's a car parking spot, isn't it? That's like a front door. That's a bedroom. But up in Leeds and West Yorkshire, you can buy stuff like this. Good, high-yielding properties. Should we work out the yield as well? So let's show you how to work out the yield. So the yield is 460 times 12, and divide that number by 69,000. That'll get you your yield. Should we do that calculation for you? I love doing this, by the way. And so when I first started buying properties, from the age of 20 to the age of 26, when I was interested in property, and I was continually running these kind of numbers because I couldn't work out why more people just weren't buying property. I couldn't work it out. So 460 times 12 is 5,520 divided by 69,000 is an 8% yield. 8%. So it's a 14% return on investment. It's an 8% yield. Now, these two numbers are what we call indicators. I don't buy based on either of these numbers, but I allow the use of both of these numbers to help sway whether I'm going to buy or not. It's an indicator, and that is it. It is not a yes or a no. People go, well, what's the return on investment? Is it anything over 10 you should buy? It just depends. What if this was in the worst area in Leeds? What if every time you parked up, your car was set on fire? Like that doesn't come up in these figures, okay? So that's why these figures are really important. One of the things that really annoys me is they go, the best place for yields, oh no, they don't say that, they say the best place for investing in the UK is Sheffield City Centre. And they go, the reason why is 8% yield. And it's like, what does yield mean? Yield doesn't mean anything. It just means how much rent you're getting divided by how much you're buying it for. What information does that include? Does it include what the service charge is? What if the service charge is £400 on a 100 grand property? It doesn't include that in a yield. So you can't say that this yield of 5% or 8% that's a great buy because the yield is so high. It doesn't mean anything. Take HMOs. HMOs generally have much higher yields. But you're going to spend on electricity, gas, water, Wi-Fi, TV license. You're going to spend £300-400 a month. That's £5 grand a year. That's not taken into account on yield. So if you're getting a 15% yield on a HMO, that's awesome. But that's not the full story, is it? And it makes me uncomfortable. I use yield, okay, but it's not the be-all, end-all. Mine really is a return on investment. I want to know how much money am I putting in. But even this figure is a fake figure. The house that I bought 20 years ago for £42,500, what's the return on investment on that? So 42 grand, I've refinanced it. It was worth 200 and then it dropped. I think I owe like 160 grand on that house. So I've refinanced it and taken another £140,000 out. That 140 grand then went into another 5 or 6 different buy-to-lets. What's my return on investment there? It's infinite. I have no idea. And now we're using the rental income to buy more rental incomes, more rental properties. So what's the yield? And as we go further down the line, the yield is getting more infinite. Like, I know, listen to the language, more infinite. How can something be more infinite? But it's an indicator and use it as an indicator. But you need to run these numbers 1,000,000 times before you get to understand these numbers. You need to walk up and down the streets that you're about to buy in. So you know, this particular house on this particular street, that's a good one. But the same house in exactly the same position, but 4 streets away, that's a dreadful street. You don't want to buy on that. There's a street in Leeds you definitely don't want to buy on, and it's been like that for 20 years. And there's always cheap properties coming up because it's a crap street. And people come and go, I'm going to buy on that one. And I'm not going to tell you what it is. You have to find that stuff out for yourself. But people are like, I want to buy there. I'm going to buy it. It's cheap. Yeah, there's a reason why it's cheap. So, I've got any questions on those numbers, by the way? Because if not, we're then going to talk about how you get to save up this amount of money. But the first step is you've got to understand yields, return on investment. How do you work out what your income's going to be? What is a suitable income? If you're making £200 a month, so as you're buying more properties, I don't know how much money you earn, but let's say you earn 2,500 every month. That's your target, and you're doing £200 profit per property. How many properties do you need? Well, you probably need about 12 or 13. So 13 times 200 equals 2,600, which is great. And now you've replaced your income from a job, but actually that's still not enough. Because what if you have 3 properties that go empty all at the same time? Let's say you've got 3 properties at £500, because I can do the maths easier on £500 times 3. It's £1,500. What if you've got 3 properties that are empty? Now, that 2,600, you're making £900 a month profit. You've quit your job. Now you're only making 900 quid. And the 3 tenants that, let's say none of them move out and none of them pay rent. Now you're only earning 900 quid for the next 6 months at least. These guys are not moving out. And then, not only are they not moving out, when they do eventually move out, they leave the place an absolute tip. You've put yourself into too much of a problem. And people leave too early. They leave their job far too early. So that bothers me. And I see people, financial free, what's your financial freedom figure? And they go, well, I earn 2.5 grand from my job, and so it's 2.5 grand. And it's like, that's not your financial freedom figure. What happens if it all hits the fan and goes wrong? What if out of 13 properties, you need 3 new boilers this year at £2,000 a pop. It's another £6,000. How's that? You know, £6,000 a pop is £600 a month, £500 a month actually. How's that going to affect that? You're going to be earning less. You're going to be earning 2,100. How's that going to work? So it bothers me, and so I don't mind people going for £200 a month profit. That's awesome. Go do that, but don't leave your job. Double that number. Right? If you double it and you have 26 properties at £200, that's now 5,200, and you have 4 properties empty, which is £2,000. You're still £3,200 up. You're still up, right? Does that make sense? Like, I run these numbers a million times. I would run them again and again and again, because I would work out, how does all this work? What's my return on investment? What's my profit per property? And looking back at 20 years, I didn't think about what would happen once I got a return on investment. Once all this money came back and I'd actually paid off the original investment, it never really occurred to me back then that any extra money after the first 7 years, because it took 7 years to get a return on my total cash, after that I'm getting an infinite return, because then I'm having my rental properties generate cash, which then buys into more investments, which generates more cash. In other words, my cash is having cash babies. In other words, cash babies are having cash babies, and it's just replenishing. And that's one of the reasons why on your journey it starts like this. So you've got time, and you've got money or wealth, let's call it as well. And it goes like this. It takes ages, and then suddenly, poof, because right here your money is making money on more money, and that's how that works. For most people, they get here, and actually this is wrong slightly, because actually what happens is it's more like this. So they start here, right? Then you've got to save up. You've got to start putting some deposits in, which means you've got less money. You've got properties that might need work doing to it. Might need new boilers. Tenants might not pay rent. You might damage the property. You've not got any experience, and so on. So actually, you start here, and in 3 years later, you're down here, and you're like, "This is crazy. Why am I doing that?" And at that point, by the way, people leave the market. They go, "Oh, I tried that buy-to-let. It's not for me." You've got to get through this bit. So this bit right here, you've got to get through that, and then when you start getting here, life starts changing. But that can be, it can be 10 years, can be 15 years, can be 20 years. Really, I would say that's in the last 5 years for me, really. And now with what we've got going on, confidence is up, our experience is up, our education is as good as anybody else's, for sure. And now we're buying, and then we're accelerating what we're doing. But how does that help you get your first one? So let's talk about that then. Because on your first one, using this example of a £70,000 property, which is available right now on the website, which I think there is a link for. Let's just get rid of this. Okay, so how do you get to £17,000? Let's just do that. So you've got £17,000. Let me just redo that again. Make it a bit bigger for you. So you've got £17,000. So this is where we talk about the money matrix. So if you can save £170 a month, how many months would it take you? So you've got £170 a month times 100 months equals £17,000. Oops, is that right? How many years is 100 months? It's about 8.4, is it? That's a total guess. I think it might be right, actually. What is it? 100 divided by 12, 8.33, close enough. So that's 8.33 months, years, 100 months. This is what we call the money matrix, right? So what if instead of 170, you could save £340 every single month? Now you just cut that in half. Okay, so every 4 years you could buy another property. And I know some people are going, every 4 years, that's an awful lot of saving, but how else are you going to do it? Unless you can do a side hustle or create a side business, and you're going to start generating that kind of money. Let's keep doubling this, because this is what I find really interesting. So if we double that to £680, every single month, which I think is doable for many people, by the way, with a lifestyle change. And a lifestyle change is sell your Mercedes, get rid of your BMW, get rid of your fancy car on HP that's costing you £340 every single month. Get rid of that, okay? Swap going to Waitrose, go to Lidl. Get having a budget. Forget about buying Starbucks coffee. Make your own coffee. These are the things that you need to change if you want this to happen. So right here, we're talking 25 months, £17,000. So every 2 years, you're going to start, you're going to be in a position to buy the next deal. Another 2 years, the next deal, another 2 years, the next deal. And what happens is you get really focused on this. So focused, nothing else matters. Just buying as many more properties. And by the way, if you allocate this, there's an extra £200 a month going towards that. So let's say your first one, you're buying one every 2 years, and 8 years in, you now 400 extra up. So it reduces this amount of time. So let's do £1,000 because I can do that maths. Let's now say you're able to save £1,000, 17 months. Let's say that you could save £2,000. And I know, by the way, some people are going, it's impossible to save £2,000. Well, it's not, is it? I went from £15,000 a year to £100,000 a year in 4 years. From 15 to 100 in 4 years. I could save £2 a month when I was doing that, and I did save a lot more from that. One of the things that really annoyed me, though, was I remember once I earned £16,000 in a month, and I looked at the tax, and it was literally half the tax that went off. It really annoyed me. But can you get to a stage where you're doing £2,000 a month? I'm going to tell you how you can do that, by the way. So that's what, 6.5? No, it's not 6, 8.5. 8.5 months, 8.5. So imagine that every 8.5 months you're buying another house. So in 3 years you bought what, 4 houses? That's pretty amazing. Okay, just making sure you can see this. Okay, yeah, you can. So how do you get to earn £2,000 a month? So what I love about this is your money matrix. How about 200 customers at £10 a month? What can you do? Is that a membership course? Is it an ongoing training course? What about 100 people at 20? What about 40 people at £50 a month? All of that is £2,000 a month. What about 20 people at £100 a month? Yeah, so that could be coaching. You could coach 1 hour for £100, depends what it is. But if you could do 20, that's only 5 hours a week. So Saturdays between 10 and 3, you did your coaching on those hours. Like right there, you're buying a property every 8.5 months. This is the money matrix. This is how it works. How do you get to this point? It's one of these. And how do you get to this point? It's one of these. That's how it works. It's a stepping stone. People think, and this is one of the things that really annoys me. I have a lot of things that annoy me. But one of the things that annoy me is people going on about avocado toast as though, oh, so if I just cut avocado toast, I can afford a house, can I? Like, really cocky, and it's in The Guardian, so it must be true if it's in The Guardian, right? It just really annoys me. Well, I've given up avocado toast and I can't afford a house. You idiot. Do you know what I mean? That's not what that's about at all. It's about saving money like this, and every little bit that you do helps. Oh, well, I can't do that. I'm on 12 grand a year working at McDonald's. Well, why can't you do something like this? This comes down to your education level, your experience level. It comes down to the amount of value that you're providing into the marketplace, and you get paid based on the amount of value. And also, that's not even the case, is it? Sometimes people get paid more than the value they put into the marketplace. We know people like that. They always seem to land on their feet. They're idiots, and yet they still seem to land on their feet. Why does that even work? How come they're paid more than the value that they put in? But also we know other people, well, the confidence, by the way, that's the main reason, but we also know other people who put far more value into the marketplace and they don't get paid anything. You've got to balance it out. So how do you get from needing 17 grand? That's how you do it. It's one of these money matrices, and the maximum one that we've put down is £2,000 savings every month to buy a house every 8.5 months. And then the question should be, how do I make £2,000 a month? And the answer is, it's 200 people at £10 a month, some kind of online training course. You could do an online training course where people sign up and you do it every Saturday for an hour. You're working 4 Saturdays for 1 hour per Saturday, £10 an hour, £10 a month, I should say. 200 people is going to make you that £2,000 every single month. You might even double that. You might get 400 people. Now you're talking a new property every 4 months, one of these kind of properties. That's how this works. If you've got any questions, stick them in the box down below. Otherwise, that will do. If you're watching this on YouTube, then thank you. If you're watching this on Facebook, then awesome. If you're listening to this on the podcast, you can come and find this particular episode on YouTube, and you can see the figures that I've actually put up on the board. We convert everything that's on video over to podcast anyway, because some people prefer to listen. They can drive, they can run. You can't really do that when you're driving. You can't watch YouTube, can you? Or you shouldn't be anyway. I don't think there's anything else, but that's how you get your first buy-to-let property, and that's how I did it. That's how most people do it. But you've got to understand these numbers. You've got to live and breathe them. You've got to really understand them so that you intimately understand what these numbers are about, so that you can then put whatever you need to put into place to start making some money. All right, I hope that's useful. We are live again on Friday in the Mindset and Hustle show. Come and join me for that. Other than that, have a good couple of days, and we'll speak to you on Friday. My name's Dan Latto. Take care.